Namaskar viewers and listeners of the Great Game Reloaded. I am Tilak Divesha. Strange as it may sound, Pakistan believes it is having the best year in its diplomatic history while standing on the edge of an abyss. The reason is that as the time approaches for the extension of Army Chief Asim Munir, a perception is being deliberately created about how well Pakistan is doing under his watch. Take for example this article by Farooq Salim titled Diplomatic Peak in the news of 2nd November 2025. He narrates the story Pakistan wants the world to believe. And I quote, Pakistan is reaching diplomatic heights unseen in its 78-year history. From Riyadh to Baku, from Beijing to Moscow, Pakistan's handshake now spans continents and demands attention. From London to Brussels, from Washington to Beijing, Pakistan is no longer on the margins. It is back in the conversation. Unquote. He calls it, quote unquote, US reset, claiming it is unlocking billions in new aid, defense deals and investments. $3.5 billion for the Reko Diq mine, $7 billion for railway upgrades, a Saudi strategic defense pact, a $4.6 billion jet sale to Azerbaijan, a new oil facility, manpower exports and defense cooperation with the Gulf, creation of hundreds of thousands of jobs. The story goes like this. Pakistan is no longer an aid recipient. It is now a security guarantor, a protector of the Ummah, a country moving from dependency to diplomacy. That's the narrative. On paper, it sounds impressive, doesn't it? Like a dream run. There's just one question though. Does any of this reflect reality? For example, when someone talks about Pakistan's diplomatic successes, he forgets Pakistan has the dubious distinction of having traded missile strikes. Yes, missile strikes with 3 of its immediate neighbors since the start of last year. Think about that. Is this what diplomatic success looks like? Because while Pakistan celebrates foreign policy success, the world sees something else. A fragile state juggling multiple crises. Ijaz Haider, a prominent Pakistani analyst, in an article titled, and I quote, Pakistan's challenge on 3 fronts, unquote, in Dawn, dated 2nd November 2025, puts it bluntly, quote, beneath the surface lies the volatile reality of a state stretched thin due to hostile neighbors to the east and west and because of deepening crises within, which have rendered Pakistan unable to retreat, yet ill-equipped to advance, unquote. He adds, and I quote again, if anything, Pakistan is facing a 3-front conflict and lacks the depth, resources and strategies to resolve these conflicts, unquote. So let's separate perception from reality, the myth of Pakistan's foreign policy success from the facts on the ground. The truth is that this is a classic Pakistani illusion, because when you peel back the numbers and slogans, what you find is not strength, but survival dressed as success. Let's take the so-called US reset. They say it brings access to IMF and World Bank programs. In reality, it is just another bailout cycle. An emergency loan marketed as diplomatic victory. Pakistan's economy today survives on borrowed time and borrowed money. It owes over US dollars 125 billion in external debt, nearly half its GDP. Its rupee is collapsing. Inflation is soaring. And yet, the government calls this revived investor confidence. Because Pakistan's leaders have always sold dependency as achievement. Every external bailout is repackaged as strategic brilliance. Every handshake becomes a headline. Every photo op is turned into proof of relevance. The same Pakistan that claims to be a security guarantor in the Gulf is unable to guarantee security within its own borders. The same Pakistan that calls itself a bridge between East and West is trapped in conflicts on both sides. And the same Pakistan that boasts of global partnerships can't hold a stable relationship with any of its neighbors. Remember, exchanging missile strikes with 3 of its neighbors. If foreign policy success is judged by regional stability, Pakistan is failing miserably. Let's start with India. The two countries just came out of another round of skirmishes, Operation Sindoor, as India called it. Islamabad calls it a defensive success, even though India smashed the headquarters of terrorist groups, the Lashkar and the Jaish, and seriously damaged 11 air bases. Pakistan says it is ready for peace, but its army continues to glorify hostility. Ijaz Haider notes, this isn't foreign policy. It is domestic politics with global consequences. Now let's talk about Afghanistan. Pakistan thought it had won the strategic depth game when the Taliban returned to power in 2021, but that fantasy didn't last. Today, Afghanistan and Pakistan, two Muslim nations, are killing each other. Kabul accuses Islamabad of bombing Afghan villages. Islamabad accuses Kabul of sheltering terrorists. The Taliban call Pakistan hypocritical. Pakistan calls the Taliban ungrateful. In short, the puppet turned on the puppeteer. Let's revisit the idea of strategic depth. It's a term Pakistan's generals have loved for decades. It means controlling Afghanistan to gain depth in its battles with India. But what has it achieved? Nothing but blowback. Militant groups Pakistan armed for regional influence eventually turned on Pakistan itself, the Taliban and the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And yet, Islamabad still believes it can manage extremism like a portfolio. Invest here, withdraw there, balance losses with new alliances. But geopolitics doesn't work like finance. You can't hedge ideology, you can't outsource peace, and you can't win global respect while fighting yourself at home. And yet, some analysts believe it is in a geopolitical sweet spot. That's delusion. Let's go beyond rhetoric. Pakistan's current government, a hybrid of civilian and military power, is using foreign policy to mask internal decay. The logic is simple. If you can't fix the economy or the politics, distract people with foreign handshakes. So when Pakistan signs an arms deal with Azerbaijan, it's not about strategy, it's about optics. When Saudi Arabia renews a US $3 billion deposit, it's not about partnership, it's about panic relief. And when it hosts drone flights for the United States, it is not about counterterrorism, it's about cash flow. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Pakistan's biggest success isn't diplomacy, it is obfuscation and denial. Denial that its foreign policy is reactive, not proactive. Denial that it survives by renting out its geography to bigger powers. Denial that every reset with the US, China or the Gulf is just a reset of dependence. Let's talk about the internal front, the one Pakistan never mentions in its foreign policy briefings because the real crises are brewing at home. Domestic protests and violence in different parts of the country underline the vulnerable position of the government. Political repression is rising. Elections are disputed. The government has no legitimacy and no credibility. The army controls not just defense, but diplomacy and media, apart from the government itself. In Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, violence continues as do gross human rights violations by the state. Serious protests have occurred in Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. In Punjab, the security forces mowed down elements of the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan or the TLP. Poverty rates are increasing. Half the population can't afford food. Its institutions are collapsing. Pakistan is ranked second in the Global Terrorism Index 2025, with the number of deaths in terrorist attacks rising by 45% over 2024 to 1081. Pakistan is the third worst country out of 142 for order and security, says the World Justice Project. But none of this fits into the foreign policy success narrative because this isn't what a successful foreign policy looks like. This is what a state on borrowed stability looks like. Now throw in President Donald Trump. Trump has publicly praised Pakistan for being a smart, great ally. He has reopened some trade channels. He has allowed drone cooperation. He has said nice things about Pakistan's new leadership. Islamabad calls this validation. But Trump's policy is purely transactional. He needs Pakistan for drones, for Afghanistan, for minerals, not because he believes in its vision. And Pakistan, desperate for relevance, is happy to play along. It's a short-term arrangement, not a long-term alliance. But having got used to surviving on a day-to-day basis, Islamabad has never believed in anything long-term. The reality is that Pakistan is not winning any of the three wars it faces. And yet, it insists it is rising. A state that can't secure its borders, can't feed its people, can't keep its politics stable, calls itself a regional architect? That's not strategy. That's self-deception. Foreign policy is not about how many photo ops you get with Gulf princes or American presidents. It's about how secure your citizens feel, how stable your institutions are, and how credible your commitments look to the world. By those measures, Pakistan is not rising. It is unraveling unmistakably. Every few years, Pakistan declares itself back in the game. But the truth is, there is no game left to win. So yes, Pakistan leaders can keep waving contracts and memorandums. They can keep talking about geopolitical sweet spots and reset diplomacy. But until they fix the country they govern, no amount of global handshakes can hide the cracks at home. In diplomacy, perception matters, but for survival, reality does. And Pakistan's reality is catching up fast. I am Tilak Divesha. Thank you for watching. Do like, share and comment. Namaskar and Jai Hind.